Across the freezing expanse of northern Canada, an isolated scientist chips away at barren rock, seeking a physical remnant from Earth's lost origins. Underneath dense ice fields and lichen-crusted stone rests a unique metamorphic formation, one that endured the initial violent convulsions of our young planet. High-tech radiocarbon and isotopic decay measurements uncovered a shocking revelation, confirming this single geological sample is roughly 4 billion years old. Formally identified as the Acasta Gneiss, this indestructible stone stands as the oldest intact rock on Earth, outlasting primeval oceans and vanished continents. However, cosmic meteorite records indicate Earth materialized 4.5 billion years ago, leaving a mysterious 500 million year void in time. More than 10% of our world's primary history has been wiped away, completely missing from the physical geological archive. What unimaginable cosmic catastrophes occurred throughout this missing dark era before the first mineral lattices of Acasta took shape? Gravitational forces bound swirling cosmic dust, floating debris, and giant asteroids together, forging a boiling, molten protoplanet beside the early sun. Deep within this forming world, dense molten iron sank directly to the core, while a fragile, paper-thin crust cooled across the exterior. A fragile equilibrium seemed to take hold, until an unimaginable planetary disaster shattered the newborn solar system. A wandering protoplanet called Theia, roughly the size of Mars, smashed violently into the primitive Earth at a catastrophic velocity. The brutal impact sent temperatures soaring past thousands of degrees, instantly vaporizing solid stone and obliterating both planetary crusts. Gigantic plumes of melted mantle rock were violently blasted into space, establishing a colossal, glowing debris ring around the planet. Whatever primitive atmospheric gas envelope previously encircled the young planet was completely stripped away by the explosive kinetic energy. An endless rain of molten droplets and giant boulders hammered the planet constantly from orbit, illuminating the darkened sky day and night. The raw force delivered by the cosmic collision forced our planet into a rapid spin, completing a full day and night in a mere 5 hours. Over time, gravity pulled the orbiting ring of ejected rock together, fusing hot dust and boulders into a new celestial body. Earth's moon was officially born, glowing a deep, terrifying crimson as its internal accretion heat slowly radiated into the dark void. Positioned 10 times closer than it rests today, this ancient giant moon dominated the pitch-black Hadean sky. Weighing 1,000,000 trillion tons, this close gravitational mass was destined to transform our world through brutal physical forces. Hanging extraordinarily close above, the newly formed moon exerted terrifying gravitational pull upon the churning surface below. These colossal gravitational forces dragged directly across Earth's molten interior, raising colossal, surging waves of liquid magma. As the planet spun rapidly, this relentless bulge of molten rock continuously fractured the thin, cooling surface crust. Red-hot magma erupted endlessly through giant fissures, hardening into dark obsidian, only to be violently shattered hours later. This was the early Earth, 4.2 billion years ago, an uninhabitable, fiery wasteland ruled by absolute volcanic chaos. Geologists classify this violent epoch as the Hadean Eon, named after Hades, the mythic ruler of the dark underworld. Surface temperatures surpassed 1,000 degrees, while suffocating volcanic gases and cosmic radiation permanently choked the sky. As the Earth and Moon drifted through space, they gradually exchanged orbital momentum, slowing down their frantic rotational speeds. The length of days began to stretch, while the Moon slowly receded, drifting 4 centimeters further away every passing year. As the Moon retreated, its crushing gravitational pull weakened, allowing Earth's outer surface to finally cool and solidify into stone. Tremendous thermal energy, trapped deep within the mantle, powered massive convection currents, driving superheated rock plumes toward the surface. Enormous shield volcanoes erupted across the landscape, like gaping, bleeding wounds, spewing endless rivers of thick, black lava. Volcanic outgassing released vast volume of water vapor, carbon dioxide, sulfur compounds, and nitrogen into the sky. Trapped securely by Earth's gravity, these dense volcanic gases accumulated, forming the planet's very first true atmospheric envelope. High in the cooling atmosphere, water vapor condensed into dense cloud decks, initiating the first global rainstorms in planetary history. Yet this was no gentle rain. Atmospheric carbon gases mixed directly with water, forming a highly potent, corrosive acid rain. Searing acid downpours battered the planet for thousands of consecutive years, carving deep canyons and forming highly acidic, toxic rivers. Eventually, these acidic torrents pooled inside low basins, creating Earth's very first scalding chemical oceans. Concurrently, deep mantle currents beneath the thin crust began tearing the surface apart, initiating primitive plate tectonics. Deep within these rising mountain roots, crushing pressure and extreme heat rewired ordinary igneous rock into metamorphic Acasta Gneiss. As massive mantle currents moved horizontally beneath the thin crust, they dragged giant rocky plate across boiling magma seas. Where these giant continental plates violently collided, the Earth buckled upward, forming the very first mountain ranges in Earth's history. Subduction zones drove heavy crustal plates deep back into the burning mantle, melting ancient minerals and recycling Earth's original surface. Continuous volcanic eruptions along fault lines injected superheated hydrothermal fluids into the newly forming subterranean rock structures. Deep within these mountain roots, crushing pressure and extreme thermal energy transformed ordinary igneous formations into durable metamorphic granite. Acidic rivers relentlessly eroded these new peaks, grinding hard stone into fine sediments that eventually settled into ancient sandstone. Amidst this planetary destruction and rebirth, a single microscopic crystal of zircon began to crystallize deep inside the magma, locking tiny trace atoms of uranium within its indestructible mineral lattice. This microscopic grain recorded the exact timestamp of its creation. Outlasting the ancient mountains that forged it, this tiny mineral survived eons of relentless subduction, erosion, and weathering. It preserved a physical record of Earth's most chaotic era, remaining hidden inside the stone for 4 billion years. Over millions of years, as deep mantle heat slowly dissipated, Earth's fragile outer crust thickened into stable continental landmasses. These primitive granitic continental crusts floated like light islands above the denser, darker basaltic rocks of the ocean basin. Protected by their lighter density, these ancient landmasses avoided sinking into the burning mantle during tectonic collisions. The Canadian Shield materialized as one of these primary continental fragments, serving as a permanent anchor for future landforms. Deep within this resilient geological core, The Acasta Gneiss was forged, enduring through nearly 90% of our planet's entire history. It witnessed the birth of oceans, the evolution of the primeval atmosphere, and the violent bombardment from deep space. While all surrounding rock formations melted, subducted, or eroded away, this single mountain core stood completely immovable. Today, in the frozen Northwest Territories, geologists painstakingly extract these ancient mineral samples from cold, lichen-covered stone. Every extracted grain of zircon serves as a microscopic time capsule, revealing physical data from 4 billion years ago. The Acasta Gneiss guards Earth's earliest chapter, a silent stone witness to a hellish, forgotten world. Just as Earth's fragile crust began to stabilize, a new cosmic nightmare unleashed across the inner solar system. Gravitational instabilities from Jupiter and Saturn hurled millions of icy comets directly toward the primordial Earth. Known to science as the Late Heavy Bombardment, fiery impactors rained down for over 100 million years. Colossal impact craters pulverized the solid basaltic crust, melting localized rock faces back into glowing red magma pools. Yet, these deadly icy comets carried an invaluable cosmic gift that would permanently transform our hellish planet forever. Trapped inside their frozen structures were vast quantities of water ice, alongside essential organic amino acid building blocks. Vaporizing instantly upon high-velocity impact, this extraplanetary water vapor saturated the upper atmosphere, triggering non-stop global rain. Continuous torrential downpours cooled the scorched surface, filling vast tectonic basins to form the first permanent liquid oceans. These primitive waters were warm, highly mineralized, and dense with dissolved chemicals, creating a boiling planetary soup. Deep beneath these acidic waves, dark geothermal hydrothermal vents began pumping rich chemical energy into the ocean depths, far away from lethal cosmic radiation on top. Hydrothermal chimneys provided a stable, protected chemical reactor for life. Deep inside these porous mineral structures, organic molecules synthesized, utilizing thermal gradients and rich iron-sulfur catalysts. Simple chemical chains gradually organized into self-replicating molecular structures, creating the absolute first primitive protocells. Mainstream science once believed life was impossible during the violent Hadean eon, but recent carbon anomalies shattered that dogma. Biogenic carbon isotopes trapped inside Acasta zircons prove living organisms existed 4.1 billion years ago. Life emerged almost instantly, as soon as liquid water stabilized, displaying an invincible, terrifying capacity for survival. These microscopic extremophiles thrived in total blackness, feeding on pure sulfur, iron, and geothermal heat. They were the ultimate ancestral survivors, enduring constant asteroid strikes and toxic, suffocating atmospheric conditions. Every living creature on Earth today, from microscopic bacteria to humans, traces its genetic code back to these organisms. The Hadean hell was not a dead wasteland, but a cosmic cauldron forging the very first ancestors of all life. As millennia passed, continuous torrential rains pulled massive amounts of carbon dioxide directly out of the Hadean atmosphere. Acidic downpours reacted violently with basalt rocks, dissolving iron, magnesium, and calcium, washes them straight into the sea. These dissolved minerals neutralized the ocean's acidity, locking away greenhouse gases inside thick, subterranean carbonate sediments. Deprived of its dense greenhouse blanket, global atmospheric temperatures dropped, allowing the young Earth to cool down significantly, sunlight finally pierced through the thinning smog, illuminating vast, iron-rich blue-green oceans stretching to the horizon. High above the cooled planet, the moon continued its silent retreat, drifting further into the deep, dark cosmic ocean. Reduced tidal forces stabilized Earth's crust, ending the era of giant magma tides and constant, violent planetary fractures. The primary continental blocks expanded, forming permanent granite platforms capable of withstanding millions of years of tectonic collisions. Within one of these ancient granite shields, the Acasta Gneiss lay safely buried, preserving the memory of hell. The brutal Hadean eon was drawing to a close, handing the scarred world over to the dawn of Archean history. 4 billion years ago, the Earth officially entered the Archean eon, marked by stable oceans, primitive continents, and resilient life. Microbial colonies spread rapidly across shallow shorelines, forming vast mineralized mats known as primitive stromatolite structures. These ancient biological factories began absorbing sunlight, laying the foundation for future atmospheric oxygen over millions of years. Yet, almost all physical rocks from this foundational era were destroyed, melted, or subducted by continuous plate recycling. Only a few miraculous mineral survivors remain today, holding the physical keys to our planet's most terrifying origin secrets. The Acasta Gneiss survived 4 billion years, enduring immense tectonic pressure, continental collisions, and relentless glacial erosion. It stands as a physical bridge to an alien Earth, a time when days lasted 5 hours and oceans boiled under acid rain. Geologists continue to search the Canadian shield, hunting for even older mineral fragments hidden inside the icy stone. The dirt beneath our feet remembers every collision, every volcanic eruption, and every cosmic storm that shaped our world. The first 400 million years were a trial by fire, forging a hellish molten rock into a living planetary home. Deep beneath the cooling Archean seas, geothermal pressure unlocked rich chemical energy, sparking complex abiotic molecular reactions. Clay minerals and porous hydrothermal walls acted as microscopic catalysts, organizing simple amino acids into primitive genetic templates. These fragile protocells contained early RNA chains capable of replicating inside the dark, protected aquatic environments. Shielded from deadly cosmic ultraviolet radiation, early life expanded, forming resilient microbial mats across shallow volcanic basins. These ancient extremophiles absorbed dissolved minerals, constantly recycling iron and sulfur to power their primitive biological metabolism. Slowly, their biological activity altered ocean chemistry, precipitating massive iron oxides onto the dark, primordial sea floor. These iron deposits formed banded iron formations, trapping a permanent record of Earth's earliest biological revolution. While volcanic eruptions still shook the crust, primitive life held its ground, adapting effortlessly to extreme planetary conditions. The Hadean hell was officially conquered, replaced by a living, breathing planet, driven by unstoppable biological forces. The groundwork for future complex evolution was firmly chiseled into stone. 4 billion years ago. As the young Earth's crust continued to cool, lightweight granitic cores consolidated, creating the planet's very first stable cratons. These massive continental roots extended deep into the mantle, acting as indestructible keels that anchored floating landmasses. Shielded by their deep mineral anchors, ancient rocks avoided subduction, surviving billions of years of continuous tectonic grinding. The Slave Craton in northern Canada formed during this foundational era, safely wrapping the Acasta Gneiss in stone. Within this indestructible geological fortress, Microscopic zircon crystals remained pristine, untouched by thermal or structural decay. They guarded isotopic fingerprints, revealing the exact temperature, atmospheric chemistry, and ocean conditions of the Hadean eon. Geologists analyzing these ancient zircon grains discovered evidence of liquid water existing much earlier than previously thought possible. This proved Earth cooled down rapidly, transforming from a molten hell into a water-covered world in record time. The primary continental anchors established. The basic structural layout, from which all modern continents would eventually drift. The Acasta Gneiss successfully preserved its data, a silent stone vault holding the key to our origin story. Continuous volcanic outgassing during the late Hadean injected massive quantities of steam, carbon dioxide, and sulfur into the atmosphere. Massive basaltic lava plateaus spread across the crust, creating vast volcanic fields that constantly reshaped the early landscape. Heavy atmospheric pressure trapped intense thermal energy, maintaining a warm planetary greenhouse effect beneath dense cloud blankets. Chemical weathering of volcanic minerals gradually released essential elements like potassium, phosphorus, and sodium into early oceans. These dissolved chemical building blocks enriched primordial marine waters, providing raw ingredients required for cellular development. Deep ocean trenches formed along active fault lines, creating protected subterranean environments far away from surface meteorite impacts. Submarine hydrothermal systems acted as giant chemical engines, pumping continuous thermal energy into the icy abyss. Microscopic mineral channels within these volcanic chimneys provided perfect physical chambers for early organic molecular assembly. Guided by geothermal heat and catalytic iron, primitive RNA strands stabilized, locking in the fundamental machinery of life. The early planet had successfully forged a permanent biochemical bridge connecting geology directly to biological evolution. As primitive plate tectonics matured, thick granite roots stabilized beneath the crust, forming indestructible continental shields. These ancient granitic cores protected early land masses, preventing them from melting back into the churning mantle below. Deep inside the Canadian shield, the Acasta Gneiss remained safely locked, surviving billions of years of intense continental collisions. Powerful magnetic fields generated by Earth's metallic core began creating a protective shield against deadly solar radiation. Deflecting high-energy cosmic rays away from the planet, this magnetosphere preserved the delicate condensing atmosphere. Protected from solar stripping, water molecules accumulated steadily, securing permanent global ocean coverage for millennia. Shallow coastal seas expanded around rising cratons, creating vast, sunny environments ideal for photosynthetic microbial life. Primitive single-celled organisms flourished in these shallows, forming layered mineralized structures known as ancient stromatolites. These ancient biological mats began releasing trace oxygen, initiating a slow chemical revolution that would eventually transform the world. The foundation for a living, breathing planet was permanently established inside the rocks of 4 billion years ago. As volcanic outgassing and comet impacts continued, vast liquid basins filled, expanding the boundaries of primordial oceans. Dissolved minerals saturated the global waters, creating a chemical-dense soup ideal for complex organic molecular interactions. Primitive atmospheric layers steadily thicked, shielding the planet's surface from harsh, lethal solar ultraviolet radiation. Shallow marine environments warm up rapidly, fostering optimal thermal conditions for early biological cellular division and growth. Microscopic organisms adapted to extreme pressure, thriving deep inside submarine hydrothermal vents, in absolute, total darkness. These resilient extremophiles processed raw chemicals, converting sulfur and iron into vital biological metabolic energy. Their continuous biological activity gradually altered the chemical composition of Earth's ancient, mineral-rich oceans. Massive banded iron formations precipitated out, locking away heavy elements in permanent subterranean geological strata. The Hadean planetary furnace cooled permanently, relinquishing control to the unstoppable forces of biological evolution. The primary chapter of life was written 4 billion years ago, chiseled securely into indestructible mineral crystals. Within those ancient protected aquatic chambers, simple molecular chains assembled into the very first stable genetic codes. Primitive RNA and DNA strands replicated steadily, establishing the universal biochemical machinery shared by all living organisms. This genetic architecture survived endless asteroid impacts, intense volcanic activity, and severe global environmental shifts. Trapped inside indestructible Acasta zircon crystals, biogenic carbon traces retain physical proof of this early life. High-precision mass spectrometry confirmed these isotopes were unequivocally produced by active, living biological processes. Life did not merely survive on early Earth, it actively conquered the planet as soon as liquid water appeared. These microscopic, single-celled ancestors laid the absolute groundwork for all future complex biological diversity. Every plant, animal, and human being today carries the genetic inheritance forged inside the Hadean ocean hell. The Acasta Gneiss safely guards this origin chronicle, an indestructible stone vault, holding our planet's earliest memory. The ancient Earth had completed its violent transformation, shifting permanently from a molten furnace into a living world. The fundamental molecular machinery established inside Hadean hydrothermal vents became the exact biochemical blueprint for all future life. From single-celled oceanic bacteria to complex multicellular organisms, every living cell utilizes the exact same genetic language. The violent trial by fire endured during Earth's first 400 million years, forged an invincible biological architecture. Deep inside our modern human cells, energy-producing mitochondria still rely on ancient chemical cycles forged in the primal hell. We are not separate from the Hadean Earth. We are its living, breathing remnants, carrying its ancient thermal fire forward. Geologists analyzing the Acasta Gneiss continue unlocking isotopic records, proving our world recovered from planetary annihilation. The indestructible zircon crystals remain the absolute oldest physical witnesses to the birth of our ocean planet. Mainstream textbooks describe early Earth as a permanently dead wasteland, but the mineral data completely shattered that dogma. The ancient hellscape gave birth to the pristine cradle of evolution, locking its origins deep inside the crust. Acasta safely seals its 4 billion-year-old memory in antediluvian stone vault. Humanity is finally beginning to read. A molten planetary furnace, a game-changing cosmic collision, and 400 million years of relentless, violent planetary transformation. The modern world is slowly realizing that our living Earth was forged inside a hell, far more terrifying than imagined. The Earth isn't changing its dark history. We are simply, finally, learning how to read its most terrifying cosmic warnings. And judging by the incredible secrets pulled from the stone this year, we are only just scratching the freezing surface. Which of these ancient Hadean transformations do you honestly believe poses the most dangerous question to our existence? Drop your fascinating, out-of-the-box theories in the comments section below and let us know what you believe is hidden. Make sure to subscribe to Remnants of Time right now so you never miss another dark, highly classified historical documentary. Hit the notification bell to join our elite circle of global investigators before the algorithms bury these dangerous truths forever. Thank you for watching. Stay vigilant, keep questioning, and we will see you all in the next deep, silent void. Until then, remember that the ground beneath your feet is always keeping score. Sleep well, knowing the past is actively watching.